My name is Sarah Fullerton. I work for the ASK programme, which is the Apprenticeship Skills and Knowledge programme run by the DfE, Department for Education. And we go around all the schools and colleges in the East and West Midlands and talk to students and parents and teachers about the apprenticeship pathway as an option for students, rather than just choosing to go to college or just choosing to go to university full time. So by the end of today's session, you should have a better understanding of what apprenticeships are, the range of apprenticeship jobs available, the different levels we have, how you find an apprenticeship, what you need to do next to start searching and applying, and obviously to listen to our lovely apprentices who are going to be online after me to talk to you about their journey and their experience. So I won't have to show you that video because we're going to get real people on board instead. So I'm just going to talk, what is an apprenticeship? So an apprenticeship is for somebody who is 16 plus. There is no upper age limit. It is an employed job with an employer who takes on apprentices, basically. You then apply for the apprenticeship through that employer like you would for any normal job. And if you're lucky enough to get accepted, there's quite a long application process, but I know our apprentices will talk about the application process. Once you get through that, you'll be employed by that company. You will work for that company 80% of your time learning the job role that you are applied to do. So whether that's an engineer or whether that's a teacher or a nurse, whatever, you're going to be taught to do your job role for 80% of the time. 20% of the time, you are released by your employer to do the study part of your apprenticeship. That's what apprenticeships are about. It's a full-time job with an educational element on the side, on an 80-20% split. So what does off the job mean? Off the job means, and I say this more to the students, but some parents as well, that because they're going to be working, you're going to be a full-time employee with that little bit of a study on the side. You are no longer going to get your summer holidays and your half terms and your Easter time off. But what you would be entitled to is whatever that employer offers its other employees. An apprentice is treated the same way. So you can get 25 days paid holiday, for example. You can get sick pay. You can get pension contributions. Any other employee benefit like discounts or rewards, even bonuses, you are entitled to as an employee and apprentice too. So let me look at the ladder. This ladder is the degree, is the sort of like levels of apprenticeships that you can do. And I've got a slide in a bit more detail to show you. But basically, the idea of the ladder is that you can come in at the bottom and work your way up the top, or you can come in the middle and then work your way to the top, or you can come in at the very top as well. It's up to you and the qualifications that you've got, and also the age you are and what you want to do in terms of your job or your career. Here's the exciting part. Yes, apprentices are paid a salary. I'm going to give you the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario for a 16 to 19-year-old on their first year of an apprentice is currently £5.28 an hour. That's the government's minimum apprenticeship wage. Come April, that wage is going up to £6.40 an hour. So that's quite a hike. But we do find that a lot of our employers will pay more than that basic salary. So we're finding generally the higher you go on your levels, the more you get paid generally. One of the ones that I've seen that might make you more interested in going on the apprenticeship pathway, working for a small company called Amazon. You may have heard of them. They were offering a project management degree level apprenticeship and they were paying just over £30,000 a year. Yes, typically 1 to 6 years to complete your apprenticeship. Now, lower levels normally take 12 months, and level 2s are about 12 months, and level 3 is about 18 months, and up to 6 years to do a degree level apprenticeship. And that's longer than a university course because, of course, remember, you're studying 20% of the time and you're working 80% of the time. We say to all our young apprentices that are interested in applying for this pathway, it is a real responsibility. You are actually doing a real job and working in a real company, and you will be expected to fulfill your responsibilities that you've been given, as well as learning. But we do find that so many employers are so committed and supportive to their employees, and hopefully our apprentices will tell you that from their first-hand experience. You will get a contract should you be lucky enough to go through to your application and be accepted onto the vacancy. The contract signed between the young person and the employer, and it tells them what hours they're going to be doing, what salary they're going to be paid, what education they're going to get in terms of their qualifications, also how that is going to be delivered. Will it be delivered through a training provider, through a university, through a college? Will it be online, or will it be classroom learning? There are 600 plus standards of apprenticeship educational qualifications, if you like, in terms of vocational and professional qualifications that are industry recognised. Last thing I'll say on this slide, doing an apprenticeship is not the easy option. Gone are the days when we thought apprenticeships were for people who had failed and hadn't done very well in terms of their GCSEs or their A-levels. Nowadays, we are getting the best of the best applying for apprenticeships. So the employers are absolutely delighted, but it's a good way to learn for our students. If they want to learn in more of a hands-on way, being taught by somebody doing the job, then this is a correct option for you. Let's look at these levels a little bit. I just mentioned them previously. So the lower levels that you can do from a 16-year-old would be a level 2. We call it intermediate, and it is equivalent to 5 GCSE passes. But remember, these are qualifications that are equivalent. They are not more GCSEs. If you go and start doing an advanced one, so for example, maybe you finished your A-levels or your course at your college and you think, I'm going to get into a new industry, you might start looking at level 3s, which are equivalent to 2 A-levels. Then you might start looking a little bit higher, or you might be working your way up the ladder. It's up to you. But you do get ones at 4 and 5. A level 4 is like your first year of university, and a level 5 is like your second year of university, and they can last between 1 and 2 years. Then finally, we get onto a level 6. A level 6 is a degree. Now, it's a degree that you would get from a university, but you're doing it part-time, and you'd still be getting your education through the university of some way. Lastly, you can look at a level 7. A level 7 is normally a master's degree, and we normally find people like solicitors and accountants who have to be ACA qualified, for example, will go all the way up to a level 7. And normally a lot of our employers will give you the whole range of this ladder. Let's talk about these degree level apprenticeships. I know Emily is a degree level apprenticeship, and I want to tell you why it's a good thing to do it before she does. You will get fantastic on-the-job learning, which is the most important thing that employers look for should you wish to move on when you've finished. And you still get paid that salary as well. Again, that salary can be a little bit more generally than the lower level ones. As I said, I've seen the one from Amazon. I've seen several others between about 20 and 30,000 as well, with different employers. This is the beauty of doing a degree through the apprenticeship pathway, is that you don't pay any fees. So currently, you're probably all aware, parents, I'm sure, that it's £9,250 a year to go to university. Over 3 years, easily coming up £27,000 that you will be owing to the government. If you do a degree through an apprenticeship pathway, you do not pay these fees, as your fees are paid for by your employer and or the government. And over 100 different employers work on the degree level apprenticeships. The experience is second to none, and we speak to our young apprentices and they say because they're doing the job, they found the actual degree work, the educational side of their apprenticeship, much easier to do because you have got people on hand to help you all the time. Here's the only downside, if it is a downside, it may take you between 4 and 6 years because remember, you're studying part-time. Let's look at the range of apprenticeships available. Now, parents who are online today, you might remember back in when we were all younger, it would be things like the trades, the electricians, the plumbers, the hairdressing, the beauty. They are all still available and a very, very common and well-received option of doing apprenticeships. But nowadays, there are so much more. The range has moved hugely from a first officer pilot working for an airline, for example, or working for the RAF. All the forces offer apprenticeships. There is a level 7 doctor apprenticeship that's being released. Not a level 6 yet, but there is talk from the government. They're going to be releasing a 5-year doctor apprenticeship in the near future. Yes, we've got our hairdressing, a paralegal. You can go all the way up the apprenticeship ladder, all the way to a fully qualified solicitor, should you wish to take that route. Quantity surveying, early years practitioner, teaching assistant, paramedic, lots of engineering. Engineering and manufacturing is probably one of the biggest growing sectors, apart from cybersecurity, in the apprenticeship pathway at the moment. Chef, dietitian, for example, the NHS, again, offer 350 different roles. And I think we have somebody from the NHS to talk to us about that. And we've got business admin as well, all different areas of business admin through project management as well. It's a business administration standard. So, are there any apprenticeships in your local area? Yes, there are. I had a look online today. I used the government's website run by the Department for Education, and I found a selection just to give you an idea of what's out there, what sort of salary you can expect, and what sort of job roles there are. So we've got things from the product design and development and engineering company, for example, on a level six, just over £24,500. Light vehicle apprentices, people working as a technician or a vehicle maintenance mechanic, for example, that's a level 3, equivalent to 2 A levels, and a starting salary of just over 13,000. Supply chain leadership, this is what Emily does. She's supply chain leadership. DHL offer those as well. Digital marketing, very big, more sort of like a area that's coming more into the fold, with young people being asked to use their social media skills to digitally sell and market customers' products or services, for example. Very popular, all the way up to a level 6. Accounts, again, a fully qualified accountant starting at the bottom, number 2, going all the way up through the numbers up to a level 7, should you wish to take that pathway. And also we've got the utility companies, sales, marketing as well. It's all in there. Here's a few employers that you might recognise. These are probably quite big employers. BAE Systems, for example, the BBC, they've had theirs open just now. British Gas, Airbus. My daughter works for BT Openreach, a civil engineer on her apprenticeship pathway, and she's loving it. All the Rolls-Royce and Jaguar, so all these car manufacturers, Green King, hospitality, all the banks, nearly every single bank will offer an apprenticeship pathway, including Santander, Royal Bank of Scotland, and telecom networks as well. We do have quite a lot of small to medium businesses, so you need to look locally for where you live if you want to see what small to medium businesses are offering in terms of their apprenticeship pathways. What we say to our young students when we talk to them is remember to look inside the company. You might think you're going to go and work for a company like Coca-Cola, for example. You're not necessarily going to be working in manufacturing, making the Coca-Cola. You could be working in any of these different departments. Nearly every single apprenticeship employer will offer these different apprenticeships, and a lot of them will even offer you to move around the business, which we think is a really good apprenticeship to look at. If the employer says we're going to put you in different areas to give you a taster, if you like, we think that's a really good one to do. But remember, you could be working for Coca-Cola as a lawyer or working for Coca-Cola in their customer services department. Just think outside the company. So how do you find these apprenticeships? There's lots of ways to find them, but the best place to start looking, because it's really nice and clear and gives you a good idea of what's out there, is to look on the government website. It's findapprenticeship.gov.uk. As an employer, you can go on there as well and register your interest if you want to take on an apprentice. But as an apprentice, go on there with your parents or carers, have a look through all the jobs, leave the levels open, have a look at the areas as well. Because remember, you can move to do an apprenticeship. Some of our apprentices will move out of their local area and try to find accommodation to take up a role of responsibility in a job or an employer that they really, really want to go to. And I was speaking to some employers today who will even help your young person make that move and actually help them get accommodation as well. For example, Eon do that and the BBC do that as well. So have a look at the government website, see what's out there. It's a live site, updated all the time. So you can see what be on there today might be different tomorrow, or more might come on. In terms of when you apply for an apprenticeship, a lot of companies will advertise now, January, February, because they're trying to catch all our lovely year 13 students who are finishing in May after their exams and maybe looking to start a job in September. So you will find a lot out there now, but keep looking all through the year because it doesn't close. Where else can you look? I wish I could tell you that the government website is the only place to look, but I'm afraid it isn't, because a lot of companies like to advertise their own vacancies on their own company websites through their careers hub pages, and they have their own apprenticeship hubs as well. So have a look at company websites, do some research, do some Googling, look at people like Indeed, look at social media, look at some apprenticeship agencies that might be in your local area as well, especially in terms of engineering agencies. They will advertise their vacancies. Also look look at Unifrog, for example, look at UCAS, and look at universities who will offer say we are doing an apprenticeship. What they mean is they're doing the educational side of your apprenticeship. But we find the best place to pick for looked as well is asking your friends and family. Normally when I do this in a big group of people face to face and I say hands up who knows an apprentice, half the room will know somebody. So it's really good to ask friends and family about the apprenticeship pathway. So these websites I was telling you about, I know the teachers are going to put these in the chat for you, but apprenticeships.gov.uk is the DfE website, the government's website, where they become an apprentice or you can hire an apprentice. They've also got some really good guides on influence and inspiring young people to get on board the apprenticeship programme. Another good resource website, especially for parents as well as students and teachers, is the amazing apprenticeships.com website. All the URLs are there. On there, you can watch lots of videos that I was going to show you on my presentation rather than having somebody live. You can look up resources, help to write a good application form, for example, what the application process looks like in terms of interview. There's also teacher resources there as well for all your teachers, and a whole list of amazing employers, including the best 100 that we've put together. So that's the end of my presentation, because now I'm going to hand over to Emily, who's a real apprentice, and she's going to talk to you about her journey. So goodbye from me, and I'll be available to answer questions at the end.
Thank you so much. I will just share my screen and hopefully you can see. If somebody could just let me know if they could see it, that would be fabulous, and then I'll get started.
That's perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Emily.
Amazing. So yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking a bit of the time out of your week to come and listen to me chat about my apprenticeship. So as introduced, my name is Emily Smith. I'm a supply chain degree apprentice, actually on the exact same course as the DHL one that was advertised earlier. I'm on the degree with people who are on that exact course from DHL, so very close to home. And currently I work as a seasonal demand manager, which probably doesn't mean a fat lot right now, but I will get into and make a bit more sense. So my current role and responsibilities, I'm lucky enough that in Mondelez, like mentioned earlier, I get to move around. So I've been in the business 3.5 years now. It'll be 4 years in July for me. Because I joined in COVID, I started a little bit earlier than September because things looked a little bit different in 2020. So this is my third role in the business. I'm a seasonal demand manager, which essentially means for every sort of Easter egg product right now or Christmas chocolate at Christmas, every single order from every single customer comes through our team. So if you buy any of the hollow bunnies this year or any of the new ultimate eggs, the big ones in the supermarkets, every single one of those I had to say yes to is the easiest way of describing it. So you can spare me a thought when you're buying your Easter eggs. So this is what a day in the life looks like for me. It changes all the time. As said before, 80% of my time is allocated towards my studies. So my Fridays don't look like this. I have a 4-day working week and Fridays are my study day. But when I am working, this is what it looks like. So I work an 8 till 4. We're lucky that our times can be quite flexible, but 8 till 4 is what works for me and my team. So I get to my office at 8 a.m. I'm in Bourneville. So I walk through the office doors, smell the melting chocolate, which is wonderful. And I plan my day, review my to-do list, look at what I need to do today. Are there any particular projects that I need to have a look at? Are there any calls I need to prepare for? And then my day is very defined by 3 reports that come out throughout the day, which are the reports that have all the customer orders on, where me and my team have to say yes or no to whether they can have the stock or not based on production levels, service issues, etc. So at 8:30 a.m. I'm completing the first one and sending that back so that customer orders can start getting allocated and sent out the doors. Once that's all done, I'm doing product reviews for all my different products, checking how production's looking, checking how we're tracking against the forecast. Obviously, with things like Christmas and Easter, we have a set deadline because there's no point producing and sending Easter eggs after Easter Sunday. So I'm tracking how we're performing, seeing how things are going, making sure that any customers that I need to hurry along a bit to get their orders in, I can do so. So I'll have meetings with the customer teams to let them know how my products are performing and to let them know what they can then take back to their customers for us being the likes of Tesco, Sainsbury's, Amazon, anywhere where you can buy our chocolate or any of our other products. At 12 p.m. it's lunchtime, which is everybody's favourite part of the day. And then just before lunch at 11:30 or just after lunch, we get report number 2. So we complete that and get it sent back to the team. From 1 p.m, I'm again sort of continuing what I'm doing in the morning, a bit of forward product planning. How are we looking in the future? How can I future-proof myself? And then based on that, at 2-ish, I'm having discussions with the sales team. So we have discussions with them with regards to, what do you think might be happening with this product? Do we need to have any discussions with the customers themselves? Do the customer managers need to be doing something about this? So we all align together as a team to make sure that everybody knows what's happening for every product, so we can get them all out the door. Again, then report number 3 comes out, completing that back, sending it back so that more customers can get out the door. And then once that's done, just before the end of the day, I'm writing my to-do list for tomorrow, just so that I can stay a bit prepared, because in the business of Easter and Christmas, things can go quite crazy for us. I have sort of 8 months of the year which are very, very busy for me, but it's really exciting. So I like to write my to-do list just so that I know what I'm doing when I log on the next morning, and at 4 o'clock I go home. I wanted to add a bit of a slide in as well to say, it's not just the day job. It's not all Excel spreadsheets. These are some really, really fun things that I've managed to be involved in sort of my almost 4 years at Mondelez. Mondelez being the owner of Cadbury, but also the owner of brands such as Oreo, Ritz, Philadelphia, Toblerone, Belvita. Sort of, we often say we work for Cadbury because that's who everybody thinks of first, but Mondelez is sort of the big overarching brand. But these are some fantastic things that I've managed to be involved in. I was lucky enough to attend Pride in Birmingham, which was an absolutely incredible day. I did some filming for the Not Going to University team, who do some social media PR, similar to the ASK program, talking about different types of apprenticeships in different businesses. So I did an interview for them with some other apprentices at Mondelez. I'm a charity ambassador for a charity called Grocery Aid within Mondelez. So we do a day for them every year, do a bit of celebrating, raising awareness, giving away some freebies, which is really lovely. I've also been to my own university, back to Aston, which is where I studied my degree, and done their careers fairs, talking to people who are interested in graduate schemes or internships. Because I'm in the seasonal team, I get to go to some really fun conferences, which we call the spring and winter shows. I'm actually going to the winter show next week, which will be great, where they showcase everything that's coming up for the next year, and all of our plans and all the new products that are coming out, which we then can't come home and tell our families about, which often annoys my mum and brother when they know I know something I can't tell them about. Some other things I've been involved in: at the end of last year, I led a team of 4 of us, and we raised some money for Birmingham Children's Hospital for their IMRI appeal. We managed to raise £3,200, I think, which was incredible. So there's lots of fun things to get involved in. And the last couple of pictures on the top right of the screen, I was fortunate enough to be nominated and then shortlisted out of 6 as Apprentice of the Year for the Food and Drink Federation, which meant that I got to go to an event in London. You can see me very happily smiling and clapping along on the table in the top. So I got the opportunity to go down and do that too. So much goes on outside of the day job. It's not just Easter eggs, it's not just Santas, it's so much fun going on too, which a lot of apprentices will get the opportunity to do too. There's so many fun opportunities out there in businesses. So my recruitment process, it looked a bit different for me. So I left King Eds in March of 2020, just as COVID hit. So I didn't sit my exams. We were taught online for a little bit, but then because we weren't sitting our exams, that all sort of stopped. So I was like the COVID year, basically. So in November of 2019, I decided, actually, I don't want to go to uni. I want to do something a bit different. So I did a bit of research and was starting looking into degree apprenticeships, because I thought that would be a great way for me to, whilst I was learning, I'll talk a bit more about sort of the benefits, and especially benefits that I found, in a little bit. But I decided that that was the route that I wanted to take. So I did a little bit of research, and honestly, the Mondelez apprenticeship came up on my mum's Facebook. I think we'd done so much research that it had come up, and she walked into my room with her phone and went, "You're applying for this, it's with Cadbury's." And so I did. So I submitted an online application, which was based on, I think, 5 different questions. So you submit your CV, all the information that they need from you, and then there were 5 different questions, sort of based around both Mondelez itself and then a few competencies. I'm sure sort of I'm hoping you've heard of competencies before. It's things like leadership, teamwork. You can Google them and see all the common ones. So many apprentice applications are based on competency, so definitely worth looking into. But I submitted my online application, submitted my questions with why do you want to work for Mondelez, why particularly this degree apprenticeship. So I submitted that, and then a few months later I was invited to a phone interview. I actually had applied for a different apprenticeship through Mondelez, but was approached to say, we've got a new one coming out if you're interested, which was the supply chain one. And I said, yeah, of course I'm interested. So I was invited to a phone call interview. So I did that. Again, it was competency based. So I answered all my competency questions, and then I got through that process and was invited to an assessment centre. And as part of the assessment centre, there was a group task, there was a presentation and interview. So for me, the presentation looked like we were briefed and we had to create a new product and talk about how we'd market it and who it would be marketed to and what sector of the business we'd put it in and why we thought it would be profitable. So we were given a bit of time to come up with that. Again, my assessment centre was completely online. So we did all of that, and then we had to present that back one-on-one to a member of the business. We then were put into a group task where we were just observed. So there were, I think, maybe 3 or 4 people from Mondelez just sitting, listening on the Teams call, sort of similar to how you're listening to me now, just observing, seeing how we got on, sort of see how we communicated with each other and worked with each other. And our group task was that we took all of our products and we decided which one we thought would be the best. And then we sort of progressed that as the 4 of us. So decided on marketing strategies, and we had a brief that we had to follow. And then after that, we had an interview, which again was a competency interview, one-on-one, a lot more in depth than the phone call interview. It was very much, tell me about a time when you've shown this. Can you tell me about a time when you've shown that? So that's what I had to do. Our assessments actually look a little bit different now. So we've added in some online tests, which if you've ever done an IQ test, that's the type of test that you're looking at with the verbal, numerical, abstract thinking sort of tests. I would highly recommend, because so many companies are doing these now to sort of cut through the application process and cut and shortlist it down for the people who have applied. You can find so many of them online, and I would highly recommend going and having a look at a few of them, just to get yourself sort of clued up on what they look like and get some practice in. So they're new to ours now, and obviously now it's all in person rather than completely online and on Teams and on the phone. So how I prepared, I guess, because it seems like a massive thing. It seems like a really big process. And obviously it's a bit nerve-wracking coming straight out of A-levels into something like this, going, how on earth do I handle this? So a big one for me was researching the STAR method, which I'm not sure if it's something any of you have heard of, but it's a method of answering interview questions, especially competency-based ones. And it stands for situation, task, action, result. And it's a way of describing a time when you've demonstrated something and prepping answers to the common competency questions. So some of those are on the application itself. It'll sort of say, we're looking for a candidate who can show good leadership, communication, etc. And I sort of prepped answers to common competency questions. Another big one for me was researching the business. Mondelez and obviously Cadbury has got such a huge brand history. Now I'm working in Bourneville, where the factory is the factory that the Cadbury's built 200 years ago. So doing a bit of research around the business, it shows that you're interested, it shows that you care. And also it's about seeing if that business is a right fit to you. Does it align with your values? Do they what are their views on sustainability, if that's something that you're interested in? What inclusion groups have they got that you can get involved in? I'm really lucky that there's so many inclusion groups at Mondelez. I'm part of the Early Careers Network, for example. So have a look, see what's a good fit for you, both for your skills and the type of apprenticeship that you want to do, but also the business itself. Does it align to you? Would you fit in there? Would you enjoy your time there? And another big one is be confident in your examples. I remember thinking, I haven't got any good examples. I've never sort of worked in a big business. I've had a part-time job in New Look and in Thorntons at Merry Hill. I don't know how any of this is relevant, but it's about looking at what you have done and where it's relevant, because I guarantee at college, in part-time jobs, you've led something, you've communicated. I used examples from college, my GCSEs, my part-time jobs. It's not about having sort of big business experience. It's about finding times when you have shown those skills and being able to talk about them. And that's what's really important. You do have the experience. It's just about trying to find it and having confidence that these businesses do want you. They wouldn't be sort of looking for apprentices if they didn't want people in your situation coming straight out of A-levels. So have confidence in that. So I guess why a lot of you are here, why I think apprenticeships are great. Obviously, a big one, you're earning a competitive salary and having your degree funded for you. So I will be lucky enough that I will graduate next year, hopefully 2025. After being in the business for 5 years, I will have completed my, it's a very wordy title, it's a level 6 supply chain leadership professional degree apprenticeship. So I will gain my degree, I will have my graduation, I will have 5 years of business experience, having been paid for all of those, and I won't have a penny of student debt, which is an experience like no other. A big one for me is you're gaining real life workplace experience. As much as sort of classroom teaching or sort of lectures at university, they can bring in sort of external speakers and they can tell you how things work in a workplace. There is nothing quite like sitting there doing it yourself, getting involved, having a line manager, having a team, sort of being part of something. And most sort of apprenticeships now and apprentices will have roles that aren't just sort of there for the sake of an apprentice. If I wasn't doing my role, somebody else would have to do it. They would have to hire somebody else. It's not just an additional place for an apprentice to be. You are having a real impact. And I'm able to walk into supermarkets, look at Easter egg and go, I put that there. And different businesses will obviously have different impacts. I'm sure that Luke will be able to talk about sort of what he's been doing through the NHS and sort of where he's had impact. It improves your employability. Like I said, you can come out of a degree, or you can come out of a degree and 5 years workplace experience in my case. So your employability looks great because you've got all of that workplace experience. And if you get to move into different job roles, you've got a sort of wealth of experience across your apprenticeship. You have an ability to influence your role and your future. So for myself, a few times a year, and especially around role movement time for us, we will sit down and have a conversation with early careers, and I get to say sort of, this is what I'm interested in doing next. These are my university modules that I've got coming up, and this role I think would be really beneficial to that. Or this is where I'd like to be in 5 years' time. What roles do you think would be beneficial for me to do in the meantime? So you have that ability to have a bit of influence and a little bit of control over where you'd like to go next. Meeting new people and learning from them. This one has been absolutely invaluable for me, both with help with university assignments when there's something that I just think, oh, I don't do this in my day job. This is a bit out of my remit. There will always be somebody who does it and somebody who can support, and learning things from people, whether it's as simple as learning how to do something new on an Excel spreadsheet to make your life easier, or learning an entire new process from somebody. You are constantly learning and absorbing from new people in all sorts of different skills. And fun opportunities. I showed you the slide before of all the fun things I've been able to do. And there are so many opportunities, whether that's doing things like this, becoming an apprentice ambassador and being able to go back to my old college and talk about what I'm doing, or all the fun things that I've managed to get involved in whilst I'm at work too. So I guess to round it off, my advice to others, and I'm no expert, I only applied to one apprenticeship, which is absolutely not what I would recommend. I would apply to as many as you think were relevant to you. But do your research. Like I said, find businesses that suit you, your skills, your interests, and make sure you take a look at whether they need certain A-levels or not, especially some of the science ones. We've got research and development apprenticeships open right now, so very much weighted towards people doing chemistry, but see what fits you, what businesses suit you, what sort of roles will suit you, and what are you interested in? You know, I mean, I'm interested in chocolate, so of course I found Mondelez interesting, but what interests you? Don't be afraid to not follow the crowd. There are a lot more traditional routes now than just the university route, whatever that might be for you. I know a lot of my class when I was at college were sort of going off to uni, and I was sat there thinking, I don't want to do this. That's not what I want to do. I want to do something outside of a classroom now. So don't be afraid to not follow the crowd. Your path will be right for you. So definitely sort of research and have a think about what you think is beneficial to you. Practice as much as you can and have confidence in your answer. So like I said, practice sort of those online little tests now that a lot of companies will do. Practice your competency answers. Try and sort of, I think I had maybe 5 or 6 examples of times where I'd shown common competencies and I've remembered them, and I knew that each one was relevant to a different couple of competencies. So in an interview, when I was asked one, I could go, right, this example's relevant, and I could sort of talk about it really confidently, which I really think helped me a lot. So practice them and have confidence in those answers. Be yourself. Companies want young talent. they wouldn't be advertising for apprenticeships if they didn't want sort of young people coming in and shaking things up a bit. So be yourself. You don't have to sort of act like somebody that is, you know, a business person and has been a business person for 25 years. You know, be yourself, talk about your examples. You're there for a reason, and they want apprentices for a reason, and just go for it. I think the worst that can happen is that you do an application or you have an interview and maybe you don't get it, but you've gained a wealth of experience along the way, which can help you going into your future, whether you decide to look for other apprenticeships, decide to go off for uni, decide to take a gap year, a part-time job, whatever you decide to do, it can benefit you. So just go for it, because the worst that happens is you gain a bit of experience on the way. But yeah, that's everything I had to share. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions. If there's any in the chat, I can always come through and sort of type away and answer some if anybody doesn't want to come off mute. But if not, I will hand over to Luke, because I don't want to take away from his time, and I'm also very interested to hear about his experience.
It's all right, thank you. So similar to Emily, I was at King Eds, but literally this time last year I was sat in your position with Louise and Faye, thinking I genuinely don't know what to do, because I'd been to uni open days, looked at degrees that relate to all my A levels really, and I wasn't feeling any universities, even ones far away or close. So they said, you know, there's someone from the NHS coming in. Why don't you come to a talk and hear what they've got to say? And after about 20 minutes, I started listening. I thought, actually, this sounds okay. So I sat down with them, went through different interview techniques. The STAR technique is something I use as well. And actually, when I went for the interview, they weren't really interested in my qualifications or anything like that. They were interested in me and where I saw myself in 5-10 years time. So don't be het up on qualifications and things like that. As Emily said, if you are going to interviews, try and be yourself. Ask your teachers what they think, because a lot of teachers at King Eds have worked in the real world. They'll know different contacts. I know my accounting teachers did. Josh Thomas is the finance officer at King Eds, and he actually did my job in surgery division at Worcester 10 years ago, which is quite funny, and a lot of people at work think that is hilarious. Sorry, I just saw Emily type in the chat. So I would say is it's not all, the uni isn't all what it's cracked up to be, you know. £44,600 is the average university debt, and at the University of Central London, they've done a study, and 96% of people that come out of university and hit 24 years old aren't even working in the industry that their degree's in. So if you asked yourself, would you bet £44,600 on a sports team that had only a 4% chance of winning, would you do it? In a way, if you aren't sure of what you want to do, I would almost recommend saying, why don't you do a gap year, carry on working part-time and do work experience, because it is a huge amount of money to spend on a qualification that you might not want to do, which is also the advantages of apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships, because you don't actually have the debt. Social life as well, you know, nowadays it's actually apprentices who have almost a better social life, because I have the money to go out, and so do my friends who do apprenticeships, Jaguar Land Rover and chartered surveying and things like that. Whereas my friends who do degrees can't afford to go out because they're working part-time on weekends. And I worked part-time at McDonald's when I was at King Eds, and doing like days at college and then working till 11 o'clock at night was just something I didn't want to carry on doing at all. Don't go to uni, like Emily said, just because your friends go. I know a lot of people who've gone to university as well just because their boyfriend or girlfriend went there and then split up with them. So you've got to make your own decision. You're an adult, and in an apprenticeship you are treated like an adult. You know, I drive to work on a morning. If I'm late to a meeting, that's my responsibility. I have responsibility over my areas, so I'm accountable. So it does help you grow up, and you develop your skills quick because you need to. You've got no choice. The NHS is, I enjoy it because it's not just a corporate office. Some days I have meetings with consultants who've been, operating on people for 30 years. I'll have meetings with matrons and go on to wards and talk to patients as well. Whereas some of the big accounting firms in Birmingham and in London and Manchester didn't necessarily appeal to me because, there's always a reputation that some big corporate companies, it is a dog eat dog world. Whereas at the NHS, it's a bit more, not a relaxed culture, but there's not as much pressure on you. That's the one thing I'd say is you don't want too much pressure, but also having other experienced people there to teach you helps you. So a typical month for me would be doing my own meetings, doing my own monthly reports. I'm doing AAT level 4, which is an accounting qualification. So I have a Friday as a study day, and I tend to do the mandatory 6 hours a day for the study day, and then do another 3 hours on a Friday, and that's it really for my study in a week. So although you have a lot of content to cover, you tend to get through it quite quick. And actually, I'll finish my level 4 in November and then go on to a level 7 professional accounting qualification. So in 3 years, I'll have the equivalent of a master's degree qualification rather than going through the 3 years of uni, a year doing a placement at an accounting firm, and then another 2 years doing the professional qualification. So in some industries, you can actually get to where you want to quicker, which is quite strange really, because you'd think paying that much money and doing a degree, you'd have an advantage over other people. I also was impacted by COVID like Emily, but I actually never sat a proper exam until my A levels. So last May was the first time I sat one. So doing exams might be a bit scary for some people, but an apprenticeship. So for example, if I fail one of my modules, I can resit the exam 6 weeks later. Obviously the plan is never to fail, but it's always there as a backup option. So there isn't as much pressure on you, and I think in some ways you enjoy it more as well because your studies relating to your work. With the NHS, all the apprenticeships are listed on their website, and the good thing about the NHS is the banding is public, but you get special things each year like pay rises most years in line with inflation. You get the same pension rights as some of the top consultants. You get 28 days annual leave every year, and then an extra day up to 34 for every year you work there. And also you can go around different trusts. So I'm currently at Worcester, but I could easily transfer to Birmingham if I wanted to, or Wolverhampton. So you could do your job in other areas of the country. So being within the NHS, yes, it's not a typical corporate firm. You don't get share schemes and things like that, but you do get other benefits. And a lot of people say the public sector's pay is usually worse than private sector, but actually with the NHS, that isn't the case. And you can go and look on different websites, but don't just be, I would say don't just look at pay, because there's so many other things in an apprenticeship that's more valuable. So the skills you gain now is what you're going to be paid and where you can get to in 10, 20, 30 years. A lot of people say that you need a degree to get onto boards and things like that. But I know personally a lot of director of finances and deputy director of finances who went into companies and the NHS straight from school. So don't think just because I haven't got a degree, there's a ceiling and I can't go past that ceiling, because it might have been true 20 years ago, but it definitely isn't true now. You mix with people from all sorts of ages as well. I think if you go to university, most of the people are going to be with your same age, but some of the things I talk about in a day and topics that get brought up at work, I know a lot of people use the cliche that no day is ever the same, but every time I go to work, it is never the same. You have relationships with people there, and I've made friends with people who are like 40 years old, and it's fun, but it does also teach you to grow up really quick. That is one thing I'd say. So, like, I'm not sure who said it, but apprenticeships definitely aren't the easy way out. They are a good way of building your skills and getting paid, but you also need to understand that it is a big commitment. You're doing a typical 9 to 5 job while doing a degree, so it does take a lot out of you. But then at the same time, when you do have time to relax, it is satisfying and valuable, especially when you get your results back from different exams. I'm not sure how other courses really work with exams, but just speaking from my experience, that is what I'd say. I don't really have anything else to add. I don't know if Louise or Faye are here.
I am here actually, Luke. Yes, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And perhaps Sarah and Emily would like to come on screen again if they would. That would be great. And yourself, Luke. And we'll obviously answer any questions if they'd like to put that in. If anybody would like to put that in the chat, please do ask questions. But I'd just like to thank all three of you, because actually the information, Sarah, that you imparted, I think was absolutely brilliant, and you kind of went through that to the race of knots, but actually everything that you said was very succinct and I think very informative, so thank you for that. And I think Emily and Luke, you come at this from such an interesting perspective from our audience point of view. I'm going to come on to the question in a moment that somebody's put in the chat, but it is really interesting actually, because thank you, Sarah, but it is really interesting because obviously, Emily, you've left college just over 3 years ago, whatever, and Luke only last year. But already I hope that students and parents can see that there is a great benefit, both just in the working practices, but also in the personal development that you've both made. And I think Faye and I would actually take a look at both of you, and unfortunately I didn't know yourself, Emily, but both of you, and say that you have certain characteristics which is actually being proactive in your time at college that probably stimulated that choice and made that very much more suitable, because you'd already gone out, done some work experience, taken an interest in things, and had part-time work maybe, and kind of added those extras around your academic studies that made you good candidates. Am I right with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I think it's about going out and looking for them, I think. And I know a question's just come in the chat about leaving college in 2025. I left in 2020 and I was looking in 2019, so sort of ones that would come along for just after I'd finished, so sort of the September after what would have been the summer holidays of 2020. So it's just sort of going out there and looking, and if you find what you're after, there's so much out there. I think that's the thing. I think there's so many apprentices at the minute. The volume of them can look a little bit overwhelming to begin with. I think it's about sort of filtering it down and going, actually, this is what I'm looking at, and it makes it so much easier for you.
Absolutely, and I think looking at all levels as well, because I know, Luke, in the NHS Finance, I think the level 4 was the ceiling, wasn't it, at the time that you could have gone for, and actually that's been very productive for you, as you said, even in the short term, then going on.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally been offered an interview today to go for the actual position for being permanent there, which was quite strange this morning. But it is really about looking, like Emily said, in advance. I mean, a lot of people laughed at me and they're like, you go into another open office at a company, or you go into another open day. And I was like, I literally have no idea what I'm going to do. So the more places you can look almost rules more things out. So don't think you've gone to university, looked around and didn't like it, what a waste of time, because it's really not. It's it's a good tick that actually I don't want to go there. Then it might not be you don't like the subject. You might want to do an apprenticeship in that subject, but not do it at that particular university. So law, for example, you might love the idea of doing law, but you'd rather go and work in a firm of solicitors and do an apprenticeship in it than going to do in a university. I think that's important as well, not putting the subject and the mode of study together, taking them separate, because they are definitely exclusive.
That's really good advice, actually. And the other thing I'd like to add to that is that very often apprenticeships may not be the only job role to look for, because under early careers, as I think as Sarah mentioned, you know, when you look at a job website, for instance, a company website, I should say, you may find under early careers a different kind of job role that leads to an apprenticeship or leads to professional qualifications in that profession. So, for instance, we know local company, a law company, local company to Stourbridge, that advertises in their early careers as an administrator, but that administrator role actually leads to the qualifications and then onto an apprenticeship. So I think sometimes it's actually not just being as narrow-minded as looking for a degree apprenticeship. You want to make sure that you cover all bases. Am I right, Sarah, with that?
Yes, I was going to add on to it. We say to a lot of our young students that we talk to, especially when they come out with their A-levels and they go, well, I've got 3 fantastic A-level results, so I'm only going to go for a degree level apprenticeship.
Yes.
And we say, please consider, it is not a downward step, it's a side step. And if you get in the door earlier, when those degree ones come up in a couple of years, you are already there and you're first in the queue. So we say, do look at all levels.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. Faye's just put in the chat the list of current vacancies for the higher and degree apprenticeships, but we do know that a lot of students end up with a level 3 because, for instance, like the AAT accounting and things like that, that is a professional standard that they need to achieve before they can move on. So those levels are really, really important to look for, and I think to explore the early careers roles in addition to apprenticeships that may lead to those professional qualifications, and I think that's really important too. Faye and I were actually sorry, no, go on, Luke.
I'm staying at Worcester to do my professional qualification, but someone actually did what I did and then moved to Birmingham. So
right.
You might not like your place of work, but like what you're studying as well. And with apprenticeships, you know, if you do a year at uni, it's very difficult to then carry on your degree at another uni. Whereas with an apprenticeship, you can move employers at any time throughout your apprenticeship. So if you're not happy in the workplace, you can have conversations with people around you and say, look, if I want to do the next stage of the apprenticeship or what you're currently doing, can I move? And is that right for all of them, Sarah? I'm pretty sure it is, I think.
Yes, we do. If you decide that the apprenticeship isn't for you, you resign from it like you would your job, and you will, and it's absolutely fine. You know, you can then go and start another apprenticeship with a different company or another internal one with the same company. It's absolutely fine. The best thing that we say is to be open and honest with your employer, because they want you to succeed. So if you're not happy, you need to tell them. You can tell your training provider as well if you're not comfortable. But a lot of companies will offer a mentor or a buddy, and they're there specifically for when things aren't going as well as they could do. Be open and honest and you'll get better results.
I know from personal experience as well, I was given a mentor and a buddy, and because of sort of circumstances outside of my control, sort of personal circumstances, it was a really good move for me to take a bit of an extra time on the degree. So in reality, I should be graduating this summer, but what we've worked out with Mondelez and sort of with my university is actually it makes a lot more sense, and I'm a lot more likely to succeed by taking an extra year. So they've made that work for me at no issue to me at all. They've moved it around and made it work, and you know, I've dropped down a year at uni and I'm taking an extra year on the degree. So it's so movable, and I think that's the thing, is they want you to succeed. It's not like oh, you failed, all right, go away sort of thing. It's okay, hold on a minute, like let's have a conversation. Like you said, mentors and buddies are there sort of all the time for those conversations with regards to how you're getting on, what would make more sense for you. So yeah, like absolutely from personal experience, I know they do that.
That's great. Thank you, Emily. The other thing is that you talked about the values of the company, and I think it's really important to understand what kind of an experience you would like as an apprentice in a job, and to try and match that with the applications that you make. I think Sarah put in there that on average, most people are kind of encouraged to put in, 10 applications. That's a lot of hard work to go in, but I would say to students and parents that is definitely well worth doing, but make sure that that aligns with the kind of experience that you want, because actually I think the experience that both of you have got are working in companies where there are other apprentices, maybe at the same level or maybe a few years going forward, because they're a company that advertise on a regular basis and employ on a cycle maybe, whereas you might be working for a smaller company where you could be the only apprentice. And I think actually it's important to understand those kind of cultural differences between companies as well, where that pitch where you want to sit within an organisation and a company as well. So that's kind of really good. There's a question in here: what can I do in year 12 to prepare for an apprenticeship as well as making myself stand out to employers? And if I could just go first before I open that up, I think one of the things that Emily and Luke have kind of identified is that sort of general curiosity about, what do I actually want and what can I offer and what can a company offer me. But I think when you start to look at those, the techniques for the assessment, you've got to have something to fill that out with. You've got to have something about you that's in addition to your studies, whether that's something you've done inside college as, an ambassador in college, or, in a representative of a club or society, or whether you've done part-time work or volunteering, something that actually identifies you as different, but also gives you, the employer, something to consider in addition to the standard college 3 A levels that perhaps every candidate will have. Is there anything, Emily or Luke, you'd like to add to that you could prepare in year 12?
I think the big one for me, I know I touched on it, is just those competencies, because so many of them are so common. I think I just Googled like what are the top 5, top 10 competencies that sort of companies are asking for apprenticeships, and a lot of them are really common, like leadership, communication, sort of organisation, etc. And things that you might not think of. Like one of the questions I had was, tell me about a time where you've changed something you've done based on feedback you've received, to see how you respond to feedback, because obviously that's something you'll get all the time as an apprentice, whether that be through degree assignments or sort of at work. But I think just preparing those and having those, and if you've got a good set of them that you're confident in, you can use them for so many different things. And if you've got good examples, you can use them for multiple things. So I think that for me, that sort of prepping those is really, really useful.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is really good is to say that some companies that I'm speaking to now are actually looking for a personal statement, not a massive one like you do for university, but a smaller one. And they're preferring that now to a CV. It's very unlikely they'll just want a CV. They'll want a personal statement from you. And then, as Emily's been saying, it's these competency questions. And the other thing I was going to add was other things you can do. There was a question there, but what else can I do to prepare? Think about if you are in a sports team, if you play a musical instrument, if you've been on the Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme, any sort of clubs that you've helped run, brownies, guides, scouts, anything like that. Employers like to see that you've taken on responsibility. So those are the other things that I would look at. If you aren't doing any of those things, or you haven't got a part-time job now, try and get something to help you. A little bit of that will help you in your application.
Thank you.
Following on from what you were saying earlier as well, I think you get out what you put in. So the more stuff you try and get involved with people from your college or uni, with Emily, I presume you've got friends in your class as well. So you meet people from lots of different companies and lots of different backgrounds as well. There's people from loads of places where I go. What I would say is work experience. I know King Eds really bang on about it, but it is really important. Yeah. It is really, really important. And the first thing people do is when they come into the NHS for an interview is, what have you done for work experience? And they're quite keen on people coming in and doing work experience as well. And before you actually get hired at the NHS, well, you do in finance, you have a 20-minute test sort of thing. So not like an exam, but they'll ask you questions about what you've done in a real life scenario. And if you haven't done work experience in a field you're wanting to go into, it's a bit hard to sit down and talk about that. I mean, I didn't have to do that when I applied, but people coming in now do. It's you almost need real world examples to relate to questions they ask, because you can't just sit there and talk about theory. They want to know what you've done with your life. They want to get to know you personally, not just pieces of paper you've got saying A, B, C, D as well. I think it's important to humanise yourself. That's the only word I can describe, really.
That's absolutely brilliant advice, Luke and Emily and Sarah. Thank you, because I think they say people by people, and actually that's a really key element of this. I think, you know, that you can learn how to do the job, but an employer is looking for a sort of a really somebody who's out of the starting blocks, and actually, you know, to set yourself apart, which was the original question. You know, actually, I think that's really key. Give yourself that advantage by doing your research, doing something of interest and showing those skills and having those examples. Work experience, Faye and I will bang on about that absolutely, but you're absolutely right. I'm just going to answer that. What happens after an apprenticeship ends? I guess in a way, once you've kind of gone up those different levels, whether that's with the same company or moved on with a different company, hopefully you are then, as Luke is, being offered a full-time permanent contract. So when your contract for an apprenticeship comes to an end, you would anticipate that, with having been invested in, you would like to think that the company takes you on. It isn't always the case, and there is always that risk, and you have to be aware that you are on a contract for your apprenticeship, not for the full-time job that comes after it. But there is very often that offer.
Just to give you a little figure here that we use in our deliveries, 97% of the apprentices stay with the employer who's trained them for the first 2 years. And there's lots of reasons for that, and I'm sure the guys here are going to go, yeah, because you feel safe, you feel secure, they want to keep you, they've invested in you, and they're going to try everything they can to keep you there. But normally you can get a golden handshake with some companies where they say you've got to do 6 months for us, but otherwise there is no tie-in, and you can take your experience and you can move elsewhere. I'm just going to got a question here. Can you apply for an apprenticeship in a detective field without going through a police officer? I think from the apprenticeship side of it, I don't think so. I think you have to go in as a PC, but they do a level 6, the police forces as well, and then you can move within it. If you want to go on the detective route, you already need to have a degree, and then go into detective police officer. But as a degree level apprenticeship, join the police, do your apprenticeship, and you can move within. Is my answer.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sarah. I'm going to try and draw it. Oh, go on, sorry, Luke.
Sorry. Another thing I'd say as well is people often view apprentices as being like young people coming fresh out of school and college. There's someone at work who is mid-40s who has reached quite a good place in her career and is now doing an executive MBA through an apprenticeship, so getting that funded through an apprenticeship role while doing her job. So it's something you can look at further down the line, not just now. You can be in a role for 20, 30 years and then to an apprenticeship to get another qualification to boost you to then kick on even more. So don't just think it's just for young people, because that's definitely not true.
Well, not referring to Faye as not young, but Faye's completed an apprenticeship in her time at King Eds as well. So you're absolutely right, Luke, and it was one of those points I was going to make.
Absolutely, yeah. Although I did feel slightly old when you were talking about the age of your colleagues, Luke. I have to admit.
And I felt even older.
I've done the degree apprenticeship. No, I'm completely joking. I've done a degree apprenticeship myself, and it definitely is really suitable for people who are changing career as well. So it's so useful in that sense. But I think you guys have put it across brilliantly, the opportunities that are available for young people leaving college as well. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you, Faye. Thanks very much. And what I would say to students is that Faye and myself have obviously this week we've got National Apprenticeship Week. There are a lot of things going on, you know, for students to continue their search for more information or actual apprenticeship vacancies. As Sarah said, sign up to the gov.uk. These things are all in on the website for the college under careers, but also National Apprenticeship Week. There's lots and lots of information around. Thank you, Faye. She's just put in a kind of programme for National Apprenticeship Week. The other thing is join the Alternatives to Uni pathway, join any of the pathways that are relevant to the sector. I know certainly that Luke was on the Business, Accounting and Finance pathway at college, and I would encourage all students to just get involved. Keep looking at all of the emails that we send out. We send out so many, we spam you loads, but hopefully something will filter through to you. I have to say, I know that Faye and I have been really excited about this evening, and it certainly hasn't disappointed. The examples that of Emily and Luke are just perfect, and I know Sarah, and you know, all the information you gave, but I know you wanted to hand over to Emily and Luke, and they are just shining examples. And I know that they were at college, they stood out as individuals, and I think that's because they were determined to make something of themselves. So what I would say is, university is a route you can continue to apply to for university as well as for apprenticeships, and make up your mind. You know, do your research, but it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You can continue your search, continue applying under UCAS. But I would say, and I think it's something Sarah mentioned, that UCAS actually is a very good website to sign up to get apprenticeship alerts. They've got much better at that. There's lots of information, but there is actually an alert system on UCAS, and I would suggest that every student on tonight signs up for an alert for UCAS, because they are really, really good at those high and degree level apprenticeships, as well as the gov.uk and all of the other websites that you mentioned. Faye's been busily putting those in the chat, and we'll round this up by saying thank you so much to the three of you for all of that information. Thank you to students and parents for attending. If you've got any further questions, please send them to careers@keds.ac.uk, and we will either get that information to you directly, or I'll ask one of our very good participants this evening to give you some further information. Thank you to everybody for attending this evening. We really look forward to getting engaged with you, Emily and Luke, again in our future events, and seeing you, Sarah, online again, I am sure. Thank you to all of you. Take good care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.